How is it going, everybody? Welcome back to the Motor City Metrics podcast. We see you guys are already in the chat voicing your frustrations. I'm sure we're going to see a lot of that as the night goes on. We've got me and Uper. It feels like it's been a while since we've hopped on the podcast, but it really hasn't. It's been a week, I guess. But yes, if you guys have any questions, comments, concerns, you want to vent your frustrations, you have any suggestions, please let us know. And if you guys want to leave any super chats, ask any questions for the show, go ahead. But yes, we're going to get into it. The month of June has been very, very rough. And that's kind of what we want to start with, kind of just our overall takeaways from the 3-game set against the White Sox and then the 3-game set against the Phillies. The Detroit Tigers have now lost 6 in a row. They're still only 3.5 games out of first place, though. But I mean, Uper, what is there to say after these 6 games? What can you even take away from this?
Well, it shows what happens when you have a lineup that has, for lack of a nicer way to put it, a lot of 4A guys in the lineup, and you take out a premium bat like Riley Green, who was, in the month of May, was on base at over a 400 clip. When you take that out of the lineup and you put in basically nothing, you see an offense that really withers on the vine like this, and is about as punchless a team as we've seen, and we've seen plenty of punchless teams. But this one is right up there with any bad offense they put on the field in the last decade.
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely rough. I saw some stats on screen where they were like, I think it was like 1 for 48 with runners in scoring position or something. Just really, really rough. And obviously the injuries are hurting the Tigers right now. But, I mean, there has to be something to be said for the lack of depth that they really have, having to bring in a guy like Jake Marisnick, bringing up a guy like Tyler Nevin. I mean, like you said, just a bunch of 4A guys. It's really, really disappointing to see. And to me, what's most deflating is they could still win this division. And it's sad to say that because, before this 6-game losing streak, they were 2 games out of first place. Now they're only 3.5 games out of first place. Minnesota has really struggled as well and now is under 500. And we know, obviously, even if the Tigers win this division, is it going to, are they going to go on a playoff run? Probably not. But it's just frustrating to see that there's an opportunity here and it's kind of been wasted. And I mean, we kind of saw this coming in the month of June, but I don't think anyone saw the offensive struggles to this magnitude.
Yeah. Well, I think it's to the point now where, yes, they're sort of kind of in the running for the division, but I think they've actually now slid back to 4th place. So they're not in 2nd place anymore. I think we can really stop about that. I mean, obviously, talk about what you want to talk about. That's cool. But for me, every run right now that they score is like they have to wage a pitch battle to plate one measly run. Okay. I mean, they do a lot of work to get that one run. Tonight they scratched across 2 at the end. So they're just at a point right now where it's not a competitive baseball team until they can get a couple guys back. I even think they missed Matt Vierling more than people thought they would. He was at least at one point hitting 260, which, is better than half the guys in the lineup right now, in addition to Riley Green. So the shame of it is they've actually pitched fairly well. I mean, they're keeping the Tigers in games. I mean, they haven't been blown out, 9-1 in many of these games. They're losing like tonight. That was a 3-2 heartbreaker until Alex Lang, had a rough go. They pitched extremely well tonight against a team with some fairly good hitters. So I don't know. It really boils down to the run scoring. They're finding a way to prevent runs. Defensively, Javi Baez is a little up and down, but the rest of the team is catching the ball for the most part. So whatever they can do, short of the guys coming back from injury, to start scoring more runs, it's so hard to make a move that is going to really effectively bolster their run scoring right now. It's hard to see what that'll be.
And
Raj.
What's up, Raj?
I saw what's funny is, so I'm getting in the car. We won. The reason why I'm late is because at softball, we won in the playoffs.
Nice.
I went 2 for 3, drove in, I think 3 runs.
You have the clutch gene.
I have the clutch gene, and we beat a team. We're the lower seeded team, so it was an upset. And then I get in the car in the 9th inning. I'm like, oh, wow, okay. Alex Lang's in the game. The Tigers somehow came back because I was getting the updates, and I was watching along. And then, yeah, Cody Clemens did his thing, and as soon as Cody came up, as soon as he came up to the plate, I just knew it. And look, there's nothing. Especially, I got some news today too. I'm not going to say exactly where I got it from or what have you. And it's, yeah. Oh, by the way, blood right. Thank you, sir.
Exquisite.
Old BK, 2 for 3 in softball. Raj, please report to Comerica ASAP. By the way, Cody, because Cody Taylor was on my team too. He had a pretty good game too. It was a good defensive game. But, man, it's the thing is that when something like in terms of even prospect wise, I was thinking about I'm writing an article about like next guys they could bring up. Cole Keefe comes to mind, and then AJ Hinch has those comments this week. There's a lot to dissect this week about what happened. We'll get to that shortly, but it was weird to see like just I don't know. It's frustrating because this is a game that they could have won tonight, but they only now Chris tweeted out they're only 3.5 back of first place.
That's a joke, man. Like
they are, they really could put into operation what the Braves did a couple years ago when, they lost some guys in their outfield and they went out and got Adam Duvall and Jorge Soler and kind of mid-level vets, and they all got hot at once and they kind of carried that team. That's something Detroit could think about trying, I suppose, but I just don't know if that's in the cards.
And meanwhile, you have the Reds this week who bring up the best prospect in all of baseball in L.A. De La Cruz. He goes out and immediately makes an impact. And earlier in the year, they had Matt McLean, who they called up, and he's been effective. They have a 1-2 punch, and they still have more. They still have another short or third baseman, shortstop prospect down in their system. It's embarrassing. It's embarrassing. And they got, how they got the next guys that got up? The trade from Luis Castillo. I'm trying to draw a blank on the third baseman's name right now, but
no, they got Marte.
Noelvi
Yes.
Marte. They got that Christian Encarnacion Strand. I think he's hitting like 350 with 15 homers at AAA. So, I mean, they have an embarrassment of riches. They have some impact talent. And you can see, you just look at Ellie De La Cruz. I mean, you watch him for 5 minutes, man. You see game-changing talent there.
Yeah.
Yep. And you know what? The one thing about Eli De La Cruz is just the amount of that ball he hit. That home run was like 450 feet up, 116 miles an hour. Mm-hmm. But the speed, I don't know if you guys saw the triple speed he had.
Yeah.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
And you know what? And Joseph said it in the YouTube chat. He's absolutely right that Marte is not even up yet. And the Reds are crazy without Marte up. And Marte's been adjusting to AA pretty well too.
Yeah.
So I had him in my top 10.
It's pretty good.
Yeah.
He's been playing well. Another young guy. Yeah. It'd be exciting to be a Reds fan, even if they end up with a losing record this year. They have a lot of reason to watch baseball games.
That ball had a family, as Walter said.
Yeah.
So no, but the Tigers. I'm sorry, I totally interrupted the flow. Where were you guys going next? I'm sorry.
We were just doing our takeaways from the month of June. But yeah, I mean, in terms of the Reds, I saw a tweet from Chris Castellelli who said like he wishes the Tigers had an L.A. De La Cruz, and it's like the Tigers, they were never active in the international market. We've seen all these international free agents. Some of the best players in baseball have been international free agents. The Tigers have just never really dipped into that, and that's why we haven't had a player like that.
Well,
go ahead.
Go ahead, Raj.
No, go ahead.
I think part of it's luck. Part of it is a lack of effort or lack of commitment to spend the major money. But then even then they spent $2 million on Campos. But I think I read where Ellie De La Cruz signed for like $70,000.
Yeah.
He wasn't really well known or a massive prospect, but he flourished into something unbelievable. So there's a little bit of foresight for the Reds there, but there's also probably a healthy dose of luck. And, at some point you got to hope the Tigers can run into that. And, maybe the Scott Harris regime is putting more emphasis on Latin America. We don't know. We can hope.
Yeah, because somebody mentioned somebody had a question on Twitter, and I think it was Robert James talked about did Al Avila have any hits as far as because Jack O'Loughlin is in AAA right now. He had one of the best starts for the Mud Hens this year. This is a guy who has not pitched above high A, and that was his second start and looked pretty good. And Winfield Perez right now is currently the highest ranked Al Avila prospect they have.
Wow.
Christian Santana has regressed, and I have no idea why. I have literally no idea. No one knows why. Campos can hit, struggles in the outfield a little bit. There were some couple plays last week that were just like kind of puzzling. But as far as somebody comes up, as John Stewart pointed out, no. I mean, if somebody pointed out, well, Angel de Jesus. Oh, okay, that doesn't count. It's bad. And you know why? That's the whole thing that's frustrating about the season is you're seeing some of the immediate results for the Reds. You're seeing the immediate results for even the Dodgers can still do no wrong. But the Padres' top 5 prospects are all under the age of 21.
Diamondbacks.
The Diamondbacks, you're going to see them this weekend. And the Tigers cannot. The news I was talking about, too, is that we're not going to see Cole Keefe anytime soon. So when or where he's going to come up, at this point, we thought we had a pretty good idea he was going to be in Toledo at some point, but maybe not happen now. So we'll see what's going to happen. Yeah,
Yeah. So I have a question for you guys. So I kind of look at the big picture of things. Do you think we're overreacting a little bit to this rough stretch of baseball? Because at the end of the day, the Tigers are, I'd say they've met all our expectations. Maybe they've exceeded them a little bit. Are they still a 70-win ball club? Are we overreacting a little bit? Obviously, this has been a rough stretch, but, the White Sox, they've been playing good baseball. The Phillies had World Series expectations. I mean, the Tigers pitching still has hung in there. Do you think this is just a rough stretch? Obviously, it's probably going to be a rough month of June, but is this a little bit of an overreaction?
Well, no. Go ahead, Uber.
Well, I think we overreacted to the month of May. The Tigers had a really nice month of May, won a lot of close games. People got a little frisky about, where they're going. That was probably we probably bought into that a little too much. Now they're really showing their warts. They're showing the organizational lack of depth. They have no answers right now for what ails them. So I think we knew that this team was capable of some bad stretches of baseball this year. I certainly thought so. But this is even a little uglier than I would have anticipated.
I don't think fans have – look, I mean, sometimes the first couple games, like, all right, well, maybe something will give in, but nothing. I mean, you have no choice, but you have to put Nathan cleanup. and then when people keep saying call up Malloy.
Yeah.
Did anybody not realize he batted barely? He batted over just over 200.
Yeah, 202.
Yeah, 202. He struck out. Team started figuring him out. And as far as other solutions down there, there's really not much. I mean, honestly, like if I'm being as much as we talk about Cole Keefe, and he went up from 93 to 30th on the new Baseball America top 30 top 100 prospect list. That is huge, and rightfully so. But you don't have anybody else that's up there. And your answers in AA for pitching are getting shelled by the last place Bowie effing both Bay Sox tonight. I have no – Erie just came in having a great series against Richmond, 4 quality starts, looking fantastic, and somehow they're getting blown up by Bowie. I mean, what the hell? Honestly, like – I don't blame fans for being angry right now. I don't, because at this point, today's June 8th, okay? It's June 8th today, and you had to sit through a bad ball game today on a day off because, of course, the sky looking all Blade Runner-like, which how many Blade Runner comps I heard on Twitter. It's just like I didn't, as Walter said here, it was a hard drop-off as soon as Riley Green got hurt. That surprises him. He figured they'd drop off, but not like this. I agree. I completely agree with Walter. I did not expect this.
Yeah.
We're getting shades of 2022 again. no power, and
No on base.
Nobody on base.
Okay.
That's been the biggest thing. When you take Riley Green, you know, and he was OPB over 400 in May, right? He's always on base. So now the next couple of hitters are always facing a pitcher that's in the stretch instead of the windup. A little more stress on the pitcher. You take that one big production bat out of the lineup and you have nobody else that can come close to duplicating it. You can see what that does. I mean, it just basically shot an arrow through their heart.
Yeah.
So if we're not overreacting, how does this kind of affect your thoughts on Scott Harris and the offseason he had? Because I know you were upset with them not spending money, and I can see that, not having veterans in place, and now we're seeing they're putting guys in positions that they shouldn't be in. But just your overall thoughts on Scott Harris and the moves that he made. Has that changed at all?
You know, I don't see any reason to be too down on Scott Harris. We have to see how the whole regime comes together and what they do with their draft. You know, what they do in international on the international market, see what he does at this upcoming trade deadline, how creative he can get, how successful that is. There's a long way to go before there's any kind of verdict on Scott Harris. I did not like the last offseason, but again, I always look one step above. I mean, that's on the ownership. The ownership allowed that course to be taken. Okay. Ownership can step in and say, no, we had the worst offense in baseball last year, and you're not going to bring in anybody? Obviously, Chris Ilitch did not make that statement. So, you have to wonder then, could Scott Harris, did he have the freedom to spend money? I don't know. It's called into question. So it starts at the top. It always does. It has to. That's his team. So we'll see what Scott Harris can do with the draft and trade deadline and see where we go. But yeah, it's you know, in the middle of a 6-game losing streak where they can't score runs and they look pathetic, it's hard to be too up about anybody.
Yeah, and the thing is that, I mean, Tony Paul was on Justin Spiro's show, Spiro Avenue, and said that the Tigers were going to spend money this offseason. Well, they better damn well because they have no choice. They really don't have a choice right now. They have to spend money. Because out of forget the money coming off the books. We all know that. We all know about the contracts coming out off the books, what have you. It's imperative because if it's, for example, right now they're trying things in AA. They got Winfield Perez playing center field. They have Gage Workman in right field.
Mm-hmm.
You see Trey Cruz is progressing well. But as far as the immediate answers go, I mean, I don't know. And look at the Cardinals. The Cardinals are kind of back in the thick of things. You have the Brewers. You have the Pirates. Who knows who's going to be asking for Raul Rodriguez? That injury does hurt them, but I'm going to give Scott Harris somewhat of a pass only because he's evaluating what he has. And he's already cleaning house. I mean, look, a lot of the guys that were, you know, so-called prospects that were in the organization high up they're dropping like fly. I mean, today they dropped Palacios and Chase Fry.
Yep.
They're not afraid to go, it's not working. Gone. And whereas before it was just kind of like the stagnant to it. So again, I know I'm talking about a couple minor league players that are insignificant in the span of things, but still.
Well, you know, it's interesting to hear that people say, they're going to spend this year. Okay. A couple things there. A, we don't know that. Proof's in the pudding. Let's see them do it. If they do it, and I like the moves, I'll say so. But right now they haven't done it. B, this year's free agent market doesn't look all that fantastic, but there's always somebody out there who's good. I mean, you can find players. So then it becomes, are they going to make some trades and take on some contracts? I mean, I suppose that's another possibility out there. But I'll say it again. There's no excuse it wasn't done this year. The division, as we're talked about ad nauseum, is there for the taking. For a mediocre team could win the division. If they had done anything this winter to improve their offense, we'd be talking about a little bit of a different situation right now. But if they're using the excuse, of Miguel Cabrera's dead contract as any kind of reason not to spend money, that was flat out a lie. Okay, it's not an excuse. So, yeah, the next year is a lot of stuff needs to go down and a lot of things need to change.
Yeah, and that kind of sparked a question for me because we did have a question about Scott Harris and him not talking to the media, and I think some of the frustration is too, like for example with the Pistons, we know they're in a rebuild, we know we're being patient, but we know they have a seemingly a bright future. With the Tigers, we don't really know where they stand. We don't really know if they're trying to compete. We don't really have a timeline for them anymore. You know, they haven't really made it clear what they're trying to do or where they're trying to go when they're trying to compete. We're kind of in the dark right now as fans, and like we just don't know what the timeline of this team realistically is.
And that's the big problem. I mean, obviously, it is a source of frustration. It's not only that, a source for frustration, people covering the team too. And yeah, it's kind of the point where it's like, well, what the narrative right now is, especially some of the stuff I'm getting and information and everything. It's like this. There's one change. There's one thought, and all of a sudden they change it back. So. But yeah. Oh, so Chris is joining us here. Chris.
Hello.
Hello. Can you see me? Hear me?
Yes.
You got me?
Oh,
Are you there, Chris? You went mute.
We can see you, not hear you.
Yeah. We can see you now. I hear you. Is it computer? Is it the computer, isn't it?
You look great.
Yeah. Yeah, you look. Yeah.
All right. Oh, still can't hear you. Oh, all right. Well, I guess Chris gets that figured out. Do you have anything else to add on the start of June?
Well, I think today, let's just talk about tonight's game a little bit if we can. Reese Olson, I'll tell you, as someone who saw his last poor outing at Toledo, he does look a lot better than I would have ever anticipated. I mean, it's only, 9 innings or 10 innings he's pitched. So he has a long way to go. But his off-speed stuff looked pretty darn competitive tonight. And, he was able to get his high fastball. It wasn't getting crushed. So that was kind of fun. And then, of course, Alex Lang spent a lot of time the last couple weeks talking about him. I think we're just seeing more and more evidence that if he has to pitch in the zone, he's very vulnerable. If they're not going to chase his stuff that's out of the strike zone, it can be a long night for him, and that's what it was tonight.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't really want to get into the Alex Lang trade stuff, but that's kind of where I wanted to go with it. Is I feel like the conversation we've had with the lack of depth and the lack of impact prospects. I think you look at a guy like Lange and Foley, especially with the Eduardo Rodriguez injury, the Tigers got to get some talent in here. And to me, those are the two guys I'm looking at that probably give the Tigers the best chance of bringing in some impact young players.
Well, Lang's got to start pitching better than he has for the last 4 outings. I don't think he's looked very good. So hopefully he can get back on a roll here and prop up his trade value if indeed there is any.
Yes.
So while Chris is working on the mic, we're gonna go to our next segment here shortly. But no, one of the things that I wanted to, before we get into our inside numbers, is we have some people with some of the comments. I just want to read, read some comments in here. How people are dealing with the stress of the losing. Samuel says, "I'm smoking some green and spinning Illumatic. Nice on vinyl right now. Best way how people do this playing right now." Let's see here. Todd 63, who's always got some great one-liners, is just venting tonight. And Deadly Ninja Bees. Holy crap! This is the first time I think Deadly Ninja Bees has entered the conversation here, and just basically teasing everything. And Jacob 24, yes, you guys should invite Chris Illich on here for an interview. Trust me, I'd love to. I think out of all the podcasts, I believe we're the most fairest and down the middle. I don't think we've tried to go asking with the gotcha question or anything like that. So, but yeah, then again, and Tyler is enjoying a loss on a cold one. So there you go. And yeah, this is my cold one after softball victory.
There you go.
So because I knew full well with the way today was going to go, It's gonna be a long podcast because I knew people would be upset. So versus drinking beer, where gotta be on your point. And see,
Good call.
Chris Schweitzer. Chris, can you hear? Chris, are you there?
I am. How do I sound?
Oh, loud and clear.
Yeah.
All right. Sorry, I had to switch from my laptop to my other laptop.
Okay.
I'm not logged in though, so I can't see. Oh, there are the comments. All right. Okay. Back in business. Everybody's happy about a strong run of Tigers baseball, right?
All right, just let us have it, Chris. What do you think?
Yeah, what's your takeaways? There we go.
My main takeaway, I think, is that the Tigers aren't trying to win. I think we've thought this a lot this year. I think the lack of urgency we've seen from the front office. I sound like the dude on Saw.
Yeah, you
You're
sound
getting a lot of
fine.
compliments on the hoodie. Go ahead, Chris. Keep continuing.
Do I? No, I think, like we talked about this before, I think the Tigers had projections of where they'd be this year. I think they were probably outdoing their own projections. When you look at it, it's still like the third worst run differential of baseball, right? Like by all accounts, they should have, one of the bottom records. So I just think essentially Scott Harris is treating this as a tank year almost, right? They can get one more top 10 pick before the new rules don't allow them to get it 3 years in a row. So they're just going to tank. So that's why, you hate to talk about Tyler Nevin when he actually came through today, but that's why Tyler Nevin's playing. That's why Ibanez is playing. That's why Scope's still on the team. That's the only thing I can think of. Otherwise, they're just incompetent. And I'd like to think that they're not in the front office. But, yeah, when you've got an offense like this for this long and you're not trying everything possible, then I don't know what to do. So that's my takeaways.
So you got to learn how to spell Caglione for the next draft.
Jock Caglione. Yeah, next year's draft is we'll talk about that after this year's draft. But yeah, it sucks. It sucks for everybody to think that way. But I don't know. It feels a little bit like the Pistons, right? Where they're just like, we're just going to keep sucking and trying to get lottery picks. That's the only thing I can think of. The pitching has been solid. I heard you talk about Reese Olson. Reese Olson has been a huge surprise to me these first two starts. A very pleasant surprise. And most of the pitching has been fine. I know people are upset with Alex Lang right now. You kind of foreshadowed this with him not throwing enough strikes. And still, he was the May reliever of the month in baseball in the American League, right? Like,
yeah,
he's got good stuff. He's had. We've seen this from him before in stretches over the past 2 years. He'll be fine, I think. He's going to get out of this, but it was just a really poorly timed meltdown from Lang, right? Like, boy, the Tigers had no business being in this game for the most part, with the way Zach Wheeler was pitching and how limp and lifeless their offense looked. And then they suddenly snuck ahead, and then just to have it pulled out from under you again is really disheartening. But I don't know. That's why luckily they play again tomorrow, I guess.
Yeah, and they host the Diamondbacks for 3, so that's going to be another interesting challenge. So, by the way, there's somebody already blowing off fireworks by our house. Idiots.
I'm looking forward to the series just to see the Diamondbacks.
Yeah, I am looking. Yeah, because there was a team that we talked about here on the pod before about being a surprise. So let's go with the inside numbers. All right, so I'll go with John. What is your inside number for this week?
So at first I wanted to talk about the pitching, but since we've kind of already gotten into that, kind of a weird inside number, but that is 45, and that's the number of comments I had when I tweeted about the Tigers drafting Paul Skeens, and I kind of want to get your guys' thoughts on that because I think this is going to be a fun discussion. Me and Uper talked about this on the last pod. Uper, I think you called him, he could be the next Garrett Cole. I think that's the guy you used, but I said he could be the next ace for the next decade. I don't know. What are your guys' thoughts on this? I think this is a fun topic that got some people a little upset, and I think it's with draft coming up. I think this is a good time to talk about Paul Skeens because I think he's going to be an interesting talking point.
So what you're saying basically is you're getting a lot of commentary of do not draft a pitcher, right? That's what you're hearing?
A lot of people were very. I got some pretty rude comments to say the least.
Let's say emphatic. They're emphatic.
When I saw that, I literally was like this.
Yeah. Humorous. Quite humorous, yes. Droll. Very droll, yes. Whimsical, yes. That is amusing, yes. Quite jocular, yes. Yes. Mirthful, yes. Okay, that's enough frivolity.
I mean, I like the fact that all four of us have our own different opinions, which is what makes the podcast go. Because if we all agreed, then it would be a boring podcast. That being said, I was listening actually with Chris yesterday on the way to West Michigan, the MLB. It was the Baseball America podcast talking about him and some of the stuff and all, and it's the thing with Pipeline too. They all think highly of him. I don't care because, quite frankly, the Tigers have been able to develop pitching at any round, not necessarily every round, but they've been able to develop pitching to a certain extent to make themselves competitive. That being said, they need bats. If this is a draft that is so offensively deep, you can get pitching later. You don't need Skeens. You don't need them. Skeet, whatever. It doesn't matter. You don't need that. What you need, Skeens. I did say his name wrong. We don't need a pitcher. Okay. Take a shot because I said somebody's name wrong because that's what's going to happen though. I understand why people would want this guy. Why would they want him? But I just look at the offensive talent in the top 10 alone. I mean, even if they get Kyle Heel, the catcher out of Virginia, I honestly at this point, any bat that can be impactful within a year or two. I'm not talking the 3 or 4 year route. Within a year or two, do it.
I'm kind of two minds here. I don't know. Do I really sound like a robot again? Is that what's going on here? What if I do this? I turn my head.
No, you're fine.
No,
You're
right.
fine.
All right, sorry. So I not to pull a chef here, but it makes me think back to the Lions from when John was a little bitty toddler, and they drafted wide receivers 3 years in a row. It was Charles Rogers, Roy Williams, and then Big Mike Williams, wasn't it?
Yeah,
I think correctly. And Rogers was a bust. Roy Williams was solid, and Mike Williams was a huge bust. And then they had 1 year off. I don't know. Was that when they took Stafford? I don't remember who they took in between. But then they had the top pick again, and it was Calvin Johnson staring them right in the face. And people were like, "You can't take a wide receiver again." And they're like, "Well, if he's the right player, you can." And I think that's the way that Tigers fans feel. Like under Avila, it was so much pitching they were drafting, and none of it really worked out. But Skeens does seem like a different animal. As Yoop said, he's probably the best pitcher in the draft since Garrett Cole. Some people say since Strasburg, who was the greatest, draft prospect ever, basically. At the same time, I'm not crazy about drafting pitching high up in general because you just have to look back at the last couple of years, and it's not. People always talk about the risks of high school pitching, but it's basically the same with college pitching the last few years. Look at the top names from the last couple of drafts. Max Meyer went 3rd overall in 2020. He's out, barely pitched. Asa Lacy has been a disaster. Emerson Hancock hasn't reached the majors yet. You go to last year, who was the pitching in the early rounds last year or 2021? I'm sorry. You've got let's see, Sam Bachman. He just made the majors, but he's not been looking good. Will Bednar, Michael McGreevy, Gunnar Hoglund, Jordan Wicks. I mean, Gavin Williams has been good, but that's the guy that the Guardians got the 23rd overall pick. It does feel like you can get pitching whenever.
Yeah, case in point. This is all right. So I just say that because Bobby Miller was drafted the 29th pick by the Dodgers in 2020. But that wasn't like top 5 pick. That wasn't a top 10 pick. I got him later in the first round.
you got to go for more of those sure things like the first baseman from Arizona State.
Well, remember? You remember that there's never been a first baseman drafted first overall either, right? Because of that risk, right?
That's
right. Why they drafted him as a third baseman.
Here's what I think. I believe that the Tigers will take a hitter. Okay, I really believe that. However, my thinking is you cannot live in the past. You have to have conviction about what you're doing in the present. Yes, do it over again. There's no way you take Jackson Jobe. Okay, do it over again. Probably don't take Casey Mize, but Paul Skeens is doing some things. And I talked about Strasburg on last week's show too. I was a huge fan of Strasburg. I watched as much. It was harder back then to see it, but I worked my ass off to see every Saturday the highlights of what he was doing. It was amazing. Skeens is basically doing that, except he's doing it in the best conference in baseball. The guy's a horse. He's a large guy. He's never had the arm issue in the past like Mize did. If they end up, if somehow Langford and Cruz go 1-2, and the Tigers are sitting there at 3, and their choices are the 2 high school guys or Paul Skeens. If they elect to go with Paul Skeens, I'm not going to argue much, even though I probably would like Walker Jenkins because that swing looks gorgeous.
Yeah, that's kind of my thing too. I'm a really big Wyatt Langford fan, but if him and Dylan Cruz go 1-2 and Paul Skeens is sitting there at 3, I mean, we talked about this in terms of pitching. We don't really have – the Tigers don't have that true ace, that true guy that can sit at the top of the rotation. Maybe Mize, School, or Manning could be that. Maybe Jackson Jobe could be that. But I think Paul Skeens, like I said, you can't live in the past. And what Chris just said, if they're tanking again this year and they're going to have another top draft pick, you know, if Wyatt Langford and Dylan Cruz are their 2 guys and neither of them are available, I wouldn't be mad with them taking Paul Skeens. Obviously, you're going to have to put trust in Scott Harris and this, you know, this front office to be able to identify. I mean, Raj sent me a video of Pedro Martinez identifying Casey Mize before he got Tommy John. He was basically was able to predict that Casey Mize was going to have to get Tommy John because of the way he threw the ball. You hope that this Tigers front office is able to identify that and look at Skeens and to be able to identify this is a guy we think that's going to be able to stay healthy or he's not. I think that's just how much faith you have in this front office.
But the thing is, for me, I'll stick by this. I'm not gonna change my opinion about this because I feel that they can get if Max Clark or I mean if they're talking the other I don't know, I'm drawing a blank on the guy's name also.
Walker Jenkins.
If Jenkins or Clark can be up in the majors in a year or 2 and give you some sort of relevance look, the reason why is simply this. Ty Matt had a bad start tonight. That being said, but the Tigers can get pitching and get serviceable pitching. They're able to take Jason Foley, who I believe was an undrafted free agent, and made him an elite reliever. That's all I'm saying. The Tigers can do that now. They weren't able to do that before. If this was drafts of glorious days past, then yes, absolutely. But I feel like they have a system in place that's allowing them to develop pitching. So I just don't. It's too much. Not even a risk. I mean, take the risk side factor for a second. You have some really good offensive talent here, and a draft you don't see that's deep. So, all right, Uper, what is your inside number?
My inside the number is 825, or excuse me, 925. My bad, and 11. Mets catcher Francisco Alvarez, 925 OPS right now against right-handed pitching for a right-hand batter. Pretty solid debut he's making. He's homered again tonight. That's up to 11 now. It really looks like the Mets have struck gold here. I still a little mystified that Buck Showalter bats him 9th for some reason, but I would imagine that is going to change as he continues to hit. But it's been in a year with a lot of fun rookies. He's definitely climbing the list of a guy who is worth watching.
All right, Chris, what about you?
So mine kind of goes back to pitching here. It's 9.3 and 7.8 are the numbers there. Those are the pitch values this season of the fastballs of Michael Lorenzen and Eduardo Rodriguez. Lorenzen's is the 5th highest in baseball, and Rodriguez is the 6th. They are behind only Joe Ryan, Zach Gallen, and Garrett Cole, and Kevin Gossman. And ahead of guys like Spencer Strider and Zach Wheeler and Shohei Ohtani. And again, I don't know if we've talked about pitch values before, but they don't necessarily tell you how good a pitch is. It's just how well it's performed this year, how much better it has been than expected. And it's pretty cool to have 2 guys. And of course, Erod is out right now, but you got 2 guys there in the top 10 with fastballs. And that's pretty important, I think. And it's the sort of the thing we talked about with Reese Olson and with Alex Lang for that matter. Those guys struggle to get outs and swings and misses with their fastballs. But if you can do that, you can be a pretty darn good pitcher no matter what. So it's nice to have those two guys up top, although who knows how much longer they'll be on the team. So yeah, that's my numbers.
Yeah, the Harris Fulmer versus Mark Gurash Twitter debate continues. So my insider number is 0.9, or excuse me, that's not the number I was looking for. Where am I looking at? Oh, sorry, that's my bad. I was looking at when you were talking about Reese Olson. I was looking at some of his stats, just kind of going, oh, it's pretty good, pretty good there. There he goes. Okay, sorry. Okay, so my number this week, and it's the reason why I wanted to make this kind of my number was because the White Sox bullpen has been pretty bad. But my number is 20.13, and that is the combined innings without allowing an earned run from Kendall Graveman and Kenyon Middleton. And that, I mean, if the White Sox are going to trade, if you talk about the Tigers trading relievers, the reason why I mentioned the White Sox is in the same division, and they're going to probably try to shed salary too. So it's not a foregone conclusion that Foley, if they're going to decide to trade Foley and Lang, they also got to worry about these two as well if they continue to pitch this way. So, honestly, I think that's where I think if this continues for the White Sox, the White Sox are also thin. Their farm system's kind of thin at the moment too. So, and
I was watching the White Sox today against the Yankees. Their announcers are talking like they feel they can compete and win the division. They're happy with, they're like 21-14 since the last day of April. I think they really believe they got a shot to climb back into it and win the division.
We're only 3 games out.
Yeah,
they're ahead. Tigers are back in 4th place now. It's a very winnable division for even the Tigers if they suddenly figured out how to score 5 runs a game. But yeah, I don't know. The White Sox do have a lot of holes.
It's crazy. We actually got somebody talk about this, what they think of this division.
Dead! This is the garbage you give me!
Chris Russo talking about the division. All right. Because it's, you know what? Look, if was that Steve Stone that said that, Uper, by the way?
No, he's I think on vacation this week. They had Benetti and Gordon Beckham was in there with him.
Former Tiger for a hot second, Gordon Beckham.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
I didn't know he was in broadcasting.
He's like their B squad guy.
Before we move on to our next segment here, the good, the bad, the ugly, and it was what Samuel said in our YouTube chat, which was, I have a silver lining take on Erod and Green being injured, trying to help us all. We should be glad our best player and our best pitcher being injured at the same time is happening while we're not good. Can you imagine if JV and Miggy both got seriously hurt back in 2012? I realize that's not much of an optimistic note, but I'd rather it be happening now than 4 or 5 years than when we're trying to win a World Series. That's actually a pretty good spin on it, considering that the way this team has been playing lately. So,
yeah, they would have been stuck with Max Scherzer
and Sanchez
and Emil Sanchez and Rick Porcello and Doug Fister.
and Prince Fielder.
yeah.
I don't. They didn't have. Did they have? They had V Martin 2012. I don't know if they had Prince yet, but
No, I don't
Yeah,
think
they
did they have Emar in
Prince,
2012?
yeah, Prince was 2012. V-Mart
Was
was
it? Okay.
2012. Yeah.
all right, there you go. So yeah, they would have been struggling. It would have been a struggle for them.
I think they
Obviously,
beat them 11.
they still would have. Yeah, I mean, that would have cost them 8-10 wins. Obviously, it would have been a huge deal to them. But it's just kind of frustrating to think back about all the talent on that team. And
Well, but their durability, Cabrera had insane durability until he signed the big contract. I mean, I'm
Yeah.
not saying it's because of that, but in the whole career leading up to that, you look at his record, 154 games was a minimum for him for a long time. I mean, he always answered the bell, and of course, Verlander was never on the disabled list for
I think until 2017, or no, I guess one of those years he had like the triceps issue.
yeah.
2015.
Was it? But yeah,
But for the most part, he answered the bell too.
yeah.
Looks like every team in the minor league system lost this evening.
I think Toledo's playing right now in extra innings.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, give Riley Green all the MVP awards.
Okay.
All right, that's time for the good, the bad, and the ugly. All right. Uper, you go with your good and the bad, the ugly this week.
Yeah, I'm going with pretty obvious stuff.
I was gonna say, or good, the bad, or the funky in your case sometimes.
Well, yeah, I just have good, bad, and ugly. I didn't get crazy. The good, I just think it's worth mentioning the Tiger pitching this week. You're in the throes of this offensive power outage with no real hope in sight that they're going to start putting a lot of runs on the board. I thought they got competitive starts pretty much every week, every day during the streak. They didn't get run off the mound and lose a game 8-1 or anything like that. Matt Boyd was competitive. Michael Lorenzen pitched a wonderful game. Olsen came in after as the bulk guy tonight, did a great job. The bullpen game with Alexander leading the way and the rest of the guys who followed. The Tigers have done a nice job keeping runs off the board. It's a shame that they didn't score enough. There's no reason why they didn't go at least 3-3 in these last 6 games, but that's kind of where they are right now. My bad, Alex Manoah of the Blue Jays gets sent down all the way to the complex leagues. They're course spinning at that's the place for him to be because they have all the equipment and they have the coaching there, and he can do it kind of in private. All that makes sense. And it's just so interesting that with the massive struggle that he had here in the first 2 months, where he really, I thought, was, and I watched several of his starts, he was starting to develop the Steve Blass syndrome. He was throwing the ball all over the place. I mean, he was missing, catchers set up low and in. He's missing high and wide. I mean, he's everywhere. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens. And of course, the parallels with what happened to Roy Halladay early in his career. People debate what the reasoning behind that was. But anyway, we'll see if he can come back like Roy Halladay did. I don't think he's as good as Roy Halladay, but hopefully he has a comeback in him because it sure was tough to watch. And then the ugly, let's just, why get creative? The Tigers' offense is ugly, okay? I was watching those first few innings today. The pathetic part about it is I would love to know what the average exit velocity was of their first 18 outs today. It had to be about 68. Everything was soft hit, pop up, soft hit, chopper, flare line drive. It was brutal. And it's become the norm. And as Raj kind of alluded to earlier, and Chris, yeah, it's becoming accepted. You can just feel it from the front office on down. That there's no outrage, no heads are rolling. If that does happen, I'll certainly acknowledge it and say I was wrong. But right now, they seem very, very comfortable with what's happening, and that's a shame.
All right. I mean, yeah, the quiet, all quiet on the front it's pretty disturbing for a lot of reasons. So, even if, again, not speaking to the media doesn't help your cause. Chris, what is your good, bad, ugly this week?
All right. Well, sometimes I like to go a little bit off the board. We tend to stay in the major leagues and around the Tigers and things like that. But I wanted to talk about Jonathan Class A. I don't know if anybody has heard of him. Yeah. He's an outfielder. He just turned 21. He's an outfielder in Double-A for the Mariners. He actually started the season. So last year in Low A, he hit 267 with 13 home runs and 55 steals, which was pretty impressive for a 19, 20-year-old in Low A. This year he started in High A and was promoted to Double-A about a month ago. He's playing right now. So through 50 and a half games this year, he's hitting 274 with 15 home runs and 39 steals. And so if he keeps up at this pace, he will finish the year with 39 home runs and 98 steals, which I just felt was kind of noteworthy.
Yeah.
And what's wild about that, everybody's going crazy for Ellie De La Cruz. I don't know if you guys have talked about him already today at all, but it's just so funny because Class A is listed at 5'9", 150. Now he's, that's the fake, like what they signed at when they were 16, but he's probably 5'10", 175 now. He's Ellie De La Cruz could eat him for a snack, but he turned into like this monster production guy this year, and it's just kind of funny. And he's not on top 100 lists, I think, outside of fantasy because there's some questions about if he'll actually hit But I just thought it was kind of funny to see a guy who's putting up a damn near 40, 100 year. That's like some video game stuff. So I thought he was worth mentioning.
I like that.
My bad is Jorge Mateo, who, there've been a lot of things going well for the Orioles this year, but Mateo does not qualify, at least since the beginning of May. He's hitting 147 with an ISO of .029, which produces the always hilarious -7 weighted runs created plus since May 1st. It's 50 points worse than any other qualified hitter. And he's been actually a positive on defense, but his offense has been so bad he's got a WAR of -0.8. So yeah, that's bad. And this one, it's a little bit of a preview for. I mean, this is kind of for the other podcasts we do, but it just felt right before I came on. This wrapped up, but I'm going to talk about the Erie Seawolves this week because they came home first in the division, facing the last place team in the division, the Bowie Bay Sox, and it's just been a disaster to start the week. So on Tuesday they lost 9-4 with their best starter Brent Hurter on the mound. On Wednesday they were down 7-0 in the second inning. Pater Montero gave up 6 earned runs on 6 hits in .2 innings. Got 2 outs in the first inning before they pulled them. They battled all the way back, but they went 0 for 7 with runners in scoring position and lost 8-7. That was yesterday. Today, Ty Madden on the mound. Raj alluded to this. He also goes just .2 innings. He only gave up 2 earned runs, but he reached, I think he was at 29 pitches, and they don't want guys throwing more than 30 pitches in an inning. So he got yanked. The bullpen actually came through for the most part. They were down 2-0. They tied it at 2 in the first inning, then they were down 4-2. They came all the way back, took an 8-4 lead. Then Angel De Jesus comes in the 8th inning, gives up a 2-run homer, comes back in the 9th inning, gives up a game-tying 2-run homer, and they lose 10-8 in extra innings. So it's just been a brutal stretch for them. But I suppose the good news, right, is if they fall out of the playoff race, maybe they'll start promoting those prospects. Yeah? Yeah?
We can hope.
Yeah, hopefully.
Yeah. So here we go.
All right. John, what is your good, bad, ugly this week?
Yeah, so I wanted to go around the MLB. A team we never talked about yet on this podcast was the Marlins. They've won 6 in a row. They're 35-28, and I don't know how many people really believe in the Marlins being in that division. I still have some doubts about them offensively. I mean, Luis Ariz, we haven't even talked about him. He's hitting over 400. That's a really fun story. I think a lot of Tigers fans are glad he's not in our division anymore. Jorge Soler has had a bounce-back season. You've got Jesus Sanchez. Jed Chisholm, he's still injured, so if they get him back, he could be big for that lineup. And even Brian De La Cruz has been a nice surprise for them as well. And we know they're really good young pitching with Yuri Perez. They have, Sandy Alcantara has an ERA over 5 right now, which is crazy. They got Jesus Luzardo. The Marlins have been a nice surprise. Now, can they keep it up? I don't know how much I trust that, but they deserve to be talked about. I believe they're in second place right behind the Braves right now. Bad, I'm going to go with the Mariners. I don't really know what to make of the Mariners because I think a lot of people still expect them to be a playoff team. But, if you look at the AL right now, you've got 4 really good teams in the AL East. You've got, 2 really good teams in the West. And then you have the Angels who have been a surprise as well. So it's going to be tough for the Mariners to kind of find their way into that playoff bracket unless a team like the Rangers or the Angels kind of struggle down the stretch. So don't really know what to expect from the Mariners. I think they have really good pitching, but their offense, Jared Kelenic slowed down a little bit. And they have a lot of veterans right now that they brought in, like Colton Wong, Eugenio Suarez, Teoscar Hernandez, haven't really been performing that well for them. So I don't know, but I think for the Mariners, it's playoffs or bust, and they're sitting under 500 right now, 4th place in that division as well. And then my ugly, this is a team that doesn't get talked about enough. We've obviously had our fair share of talk about the Oakland Athletics and how bad they've been, but the Kansas City Royals only have 4 more wins than the Oakland Athletics. The Kansas City Royals are a joke. I'm sorry. They've been rebuilding since, what was it, 2017, 2018. And the fact that they're 18-44 right now, I saw a tweet that was like Zach Greinke was their leader in WAR in 2004, and I think he's their leader in WAR this season or something crazy like that. Like the Royals, I don't know. Bobby Witt Jr. hasn't been that good this year. Vinny Pasquantino, he's a really nice young hitter. but they just don't have a lot going for them. And yeah, I think a lot of people like to crap on the Oakland A's. Kansas City Royals are right there with them for being one of the worst teams in baseball.
No, that's a really good. I mean, it's when you look at the Royals, Bobby Witt's, he's sporting something like a 268 on base percentage. So even though he's hit 10 homers and he's stolen 20 bases, he is providing a lot of outs to the opponents in their lineup. And Pascantino got off to a hot start, but he's actually slowed down. Their big thing is, and let's go back to our draft talk, don't draft pitching. They invested that entire 2018 draft in pitching, thinking that would be the bulwark of a good major league staff, and so far it has not come about. Almost all those guys have fizzled.
I was really, really, I was adamant. I admittedly was. I'll take the L on this. I thought that pitching that they drafted would pan out, and yeah, it hasn't. So
it's amazing they're like 0 for 5. I mean 0 for 6 on these guys.
Yeah.
I mean, just to sort of piggyback on John's whole list there, where it sort of feels like all the other teams that were doing like a full-fledged rebuild are starting to see the fruits of that, except for the Tigers and the Royals. Like the Tigers, I guess you could say like Skubal was looking good and Green was looking good, but like, Pasquantino's looking good for the Royals, but it's just not enough. They didn't have enough depth. And we see with the Reds just had these army of guys. They have more guys coming. They have Marte coming. They have Connor Phillips coming. They have guys. Abbott was up there pitching. They've got a lot of talent coming. The Marlins had a deep farm system, and now they found some offense. The Diamondbacks, the Rangers, all these other teams that were really kind of rebuilding seem to have done it properly. Now the Rangers spent a bunch of money to kickstart that, but yeah, it's frustrating to have to kind of double down on a rebuild.
Yeah, and the Rangers. I mean, this is kind of. You saw Jacob deGrom is gonna be out for the year, and he was pretty upset about the whole thing. John Gray out last night against the Cardinals pitched pretty good until that home run. We were watching that game on the way back, but Texas is still having other people step up. They're having other pitchers step up, which is something that I wouldn't expect from in the past. But they've been getting help everywhere on the pitching side of things. So. Which is good because they're running away with. I mean, even Houston can win all they want, but Texas is continually. Wow, that's not a word. Texas just keeps winning. That's what I just said.
I think it's Texas and Tampa this weekend. That should be a pretty good series.
Are they a Sunday night baseball matchup, or is it going to be Yankees insert team?
Probably, I don't know. That's a good question.
Let's see.
I can't even remember the last time I watched Sunday night baseball.
Oh, I didn't realize that Tigers Sunday game is live on Peacock at 11:35 a.m.
There you go.
Tigers get the Peacock game on Sunday. It'll be done by the time you get home from church.
Peacock game.
Yeah.
Looks like no. Raj, guess what the 7:10 p.m. game is?
When?
Red Sox at Yankees.
Oh. I knew it. I mean, it's just a flip of a coin, essentially. Sunday Night Baseball, Boston, New York, 800 times, because that's what we do. Because everybody cares about Boston, New York.
Brutal.
Yeah, you know what? They go where the eyeballs go. It's
I guess
you can't blame them. That's where the advertising dollars are. It's a bummer.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
what
matchups like Texas and Tampa, or Houston and Tampa, or was it Texas and Tampa? Sorry,
I think Texas and Tampa. Yeah. They play at 1:40. Yep.
No. We don't want good baseball. We want the same old two teams in this rivalry that we keep propping up every single time. Let's replay the Bucky Dent home run. It's
a classic matchup between Brian Bello and Clark Schmidt.
Ooh,
your last place Red Sox.
Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, I don't care.
Who wants to watch Shane McClanahan pitch in primetime against Martin Perez? Yeah.
Then again, I know what the easy burn is. We'll look at the AL Central. It's terrible. Yeah, I know. But there's other teams in baseball that we can watch.
Central should be contracted.
We should be sentenced to Peacock every day.
Shout
out to the comment. Tigers at 11 a.m. on a Sunday feels like an advertisement for depression medication.
It does. Yeah. It's quality. Yeah.
Okay.
Real dry mouth.
So my good this week is Devin Williams, and the Brewers have had a lot of injuries to their staff, not staff rather, but their offense. They've been Willie Adames, who was just in high A doing a rehab stint, has I believe a concussion, but they've been getting guys left and right on the injury list, and they're still been going on. And Devin Williams has been, I don't want to say if it's maybe perhaps quietly having a good year, but he's just been a rock for them, especially because with all the injury, like you have the Cardinals coming, or excuse me, the Pirates still sticking around. That whole NL Central's funky, but Devin Williams continues to be rock steady. And so I don't know. I love watching that guy pitch when I get an opportunity to, and he's been a big time rock for him. So for the Brewers, and they need all the help they can get here, especially the hoard off the Pirates. I can't believe I actually said that sentence. The Brewers are trying to hold off the Pirates. All right. So my bad is the Cleveland offense. And there was a great article in Fangraphs. And this was something I wanted to point out because we saw Cleveland earlier this year. And usually when you see Jose Ramirez come to the plate and he terrorizes Tiger pitching, and you usually will. And it wasn't that, I mean, I think he had a home run, but it hasn't been the same. And we thought, and we talked about this, we thought with Josh Bell coming to Cleveland, that the offense would be better. And they have a WRC plus of 79. They're dead last in the league.
Wow.
So as far as you're talking in terms of their ISO numbers, by the way, 116, also dead last in the league. So, and this is in addition to having Bell on there. So it has been, in terms of like even having a league offer, and he pointed us out in the article too, they're actually worse than, we're talking about Oakland. They're worse than Oakland in catcher, first base, right field, center field, and DH. In terms of offense today.
Wow.
Outside of, there's Ramirez did hit 3 home runs today. I know that sounds weird that I was mentioning them as my bad. I know. I understand that.
Well, I was just saying, I was just looking at the live stats because I think they scored 10 runs and Ramirez got 3 home runs. So they now have a WRC plus of 82, which is, they're up to 83, which is 3 better than Detroit at 80.
Oh, that's
they still only have 39 home runs. They're dead last in home runs.
Oh, in terms of Sean asked in the YouTube chat, have there been an update about Austin Meadows lately? And no, there's not. There hasn't been an update. And blood right, man. I gotta. Hold on.
Well,
Oh, he's gone. Such a long time.
The comment Blood Right said, time to fess up. This year I've been betting on the Tigers' misfortune and doing very well. Tonight I was live betting and bet Lang would lose the game. You know what, man? I mean,
that's what I was. You sharing the pain with us, I guess.
You know what, man? You gotta. You know what? Hey, God bless you, man.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, I would do it. I would. Honestly, why not?
I imagine if you bet the under just about every night, you're going to do okay. But I don't know how gambling works. But to Sean's point, like all we've heard about Austin Meadows is that he's there with the team. He's celebrating after they win. He's in the clubhouse. He's doing that stuff. So, but there's no word on if and when he's going to get back to any sort of baseball activity. So, I think the 60 days is up technically already. But yeah, I don't know.
Wow.
Oh, there, nice, Samuel. Thank you for the $5 Canadian.
Exquisite.
Found out today that Samuel is a beers brew, so that's actually
I'll
talk to Samuel about that offline sometime. Joe wants to know, will the Tigers get no hit this weekend? I have to see the pitching matchups.
Well, they got
Zach
Gallen on Sunday.
Oh, and my ugly this week is, and it's not necessarily ugly, but a tip of the cap to Roger Craig, who passed away this week. Roger Craig was instrumental on developing the split finger fastball for Jack Morris and Dan Petrie, the 1984 Tigers World Series team. And ironically enough, he got that split finger knowledge from John Sain, who was the Tigers pitching coach for the 68 team. So there's just kind of like that weird cross. Yeah. Anyway.
Symmetry.
Yeah. Synergy. Exactly. But he I mean, just in terms of like you looking at pitchers that he taught, and Jake Jaffe did a fantastic article about it, but Roger Craig was one of those first names you hear as like when you're playing baseball, or you don't often coach, like pitching coaches don't, like, you know about Lee Mazzoni and all those things, but you get older, you hear more of those names, and Roger Craig was one of the first names to go, who's Roger Craig? And ended up being a manager of the Giants too. I think he managed the team when they went to the World Series in '89, I believe. Maybe, I'm not sure.
Yeah, might have.
I think he did.
Oh, yeah.
I remember having his baseball card.
Oh, Sean with the $2, thank you.
Exquisite.
What's a super sticker?
I don't
Super
know.
What do those
sticker
do?
is you can do a super sticker. So if we're in the chat, like there's if you're in the YouTube chat, you'll see it in there. But yeah, you know what, Andrew's, and I completely agree with Andrew on that. The bad is the lack of coverage from Craig's contribution to the '84 team. Tigers pretty much owe him quite a bit. I mean, that was a staff that was, it really was. I mean, they carried the staff after he left. I mean, the staff really wasn't the same after that anyway. And yeah, he was part of the Giants pennant winning, and that was their first pennant winning title, or excuse me, their first division. Was that their first one in San Francisco since the 60s, I believe? Was that the first one in San Francisco when they went to the World Series? No, that was their first World Series appearance in San Francisco. Yeah. So he's responsible for a lot of good memories, and I think he should get a little more due than he had. I thought, and he posted this, Jay Jaffe posted this really good tweet from Will Clark, who played with under Roger Craig. And Hum Baby, my second dad and the man who taught me the game of baseball. It was a pleasure playing for such a great manager in person. Please make sure all the guys up there in heaven are gamers. All my best to your wonderful family, Will Clark. They show a picture of him from '86. And yeah, that's just, yeah. I mean, again, and he also wrote a book about his experience with the '84 Tigers, and it's called Inside Pitch. So worth checking out. Again, look at the article Jay Jaffe did. I think Jay Jaffe did a really fantastic job eulogizing him. So, yeah. So that's my good, bad, and ugly for this week.
Yeah. Questions?
Did we get any questions?
I have a question.
Yes.
Joe Rizzo. We didn't touch on him. Do you guys have anything to add?
You know what? I got something to add. I got something to add for that.
Frank Rizzo.
Yeah, Frank. I can't find it now. Oh, who? I don't.
Oh, that was where you're at.
Yeah, I was gonna say who. I mean, the Tigers signed somebody for depth.
Well, so I was saying, I remember him from the draft that year, which was all the way back in 2016, following the draft, because he was considered one of the more, not projectable, but more like ready-made bats. People thought he was going to be an above-average hitter with above-average power. And he went in the second round, I think, and it just never materialized. He never hit, and he's a minor league free agent who didn't really do much of anything this year. We saw that Toledo released Jermaine Palacios today, and so Rizzo basically replaces him and they're pretty right-handed in Toledo. You got Lipsius as a right-handed hitter, Brendan Davis is a right-handed hitter. Corey Joyce is a right-handed hitter. I'm trying to think of the other. Ryan Kreidler, if and when he comes back, is a right-handed hitter. They don't really have any left-handed infielders, so I think they're just fitting that. Now, there is a left-handed infielder that everybody wants to see in Toledo. He's an Erie, but signing Rizzo might suggest that maybe that's not happening, at least right now. So, but yeah, it's a minor league depth signing. It is kind of odd. The Tigers, we were talking about this earlier. The Tigers just kind of announce everything now on their PR account, which I'm fine with. It's better than having to dig up and trying to see stuff. And they're really doing a great job with those medical updates. I think those are. I don't know if other teams are doing those, but so there's a little bit more transparency in that regard. Still can't talk or interview to any of the coaches or find the GM anywhere or the president, but at least they're letting us know who they're acquiring and who's hurt. So that's my thoughts on Rizzo.
Yeah, and then I just had one more about Brady Allen, because I know he was acquired from the Tigers last month. have you guys been paying attention to him down in the minors, and how has he fared for the Tigers?
He's been all right. I mean, he had a couple really good hit opposite field, a couple opposite field singles or hits that he had that were pretty good, makes good contact. Plays good defensively. Thought he was pretty good out there helping out Campos. He's been a big help with the Campos out there.
So
Yeah.
tell me this. Jace Young, hot streak, or has he turned to somewhat of a semi-corner?
I think it was a hot streak.
That's fair.
It's just tough. He's had a couple weeks like that this year. Now, none as good as that one, but he didn't do much of anything for us the other night, right? I think he got a single today. It's still just kind of the same look where you can get him with good fastballs up in the zone. And I don't know. He doesn't look like a particularly special prospect to me. I think he may eventually make his way to the big leagues, but I don't know. It's like it just doesn't jump off the page when you see him.
I think he plays his position well. Defensively,
He does.
He does. He has been making some of the hardest contact in West Michigan. He's hitting the ball pretty well. I might be a little higher on him. I mean, outside of Keefe, I think he might be the second best prospect in the system.
Okay. It's good to see a sign of life, that's for sure. I mean, as the weather warms up, hopefully he will too.
Wow. Yeah. And I just have one more. It was about Tarek Skubal. We saw he made a rehab start. When are you guys thinking we could see him back up in the majors?
Probably by next week at this point. He's going to be pitching tomorrow in West Michigan. I'm trying.
Not in the majors next week.
No, I meant like pitching regularly in the. You don't think he's getting the majors by next week?
Skubal?
Yeah, he's pitching tomorrow. No, why? Not?
He pitched 2 innings in his first outing. He'd probably go 3 tomorrow. He's probably got 4 or 5 more starts before they bring him up to the bigs.
At some point, they'll put him in Toledo, right? Don't you think? For at least one.
I think so. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think they were talking about basically treating this like his spring training, so they're ramping him up now.
All right, then that makes more sense. Maybe I'm just too eager to see. Admittedly, I'm too eager to see him. Because I always think of like that when they ever go to West Michigan, they're pretty close. I mean, we saw Brisky yesterday. Brisky, by the way, 95, 94 consistently. Didn't throw his changeup at all though, so it was basically fastball slider. So, we got a question in there real quick. Trey Cruz, a prospect on the rise? Yes, absolutely. Trey Cruz has turned a corner. I wrote an article about him, and looking at the data, he's a completely different hitter. He's turned around for the better. He's hitting with power. He's hitting for average, and I don't know. I think he's figured it out.
He's decided he's got to be a part of the family business.
Yeah. Go ahead, Chris.
Oh, I was just going to say, I mean, I think he has put himself back on the prospect map. We had kind of taken him off our list because of the way he looked last year, but Rogelio pointed out the adjustments he made. And I still think it's a relatively low ceiling. It's still probably a super utility player, but I think he'll probably be a big leaguer now because he does. So we were looking at it yesterday. He's played primarily center field and shortstop this year, but also second base and third base. Mm-hmm. And he's done adequate work at all of them. Like he's just fine in all those positions. I wouldn't want him playing shortstop every day or third base every day, I don't think. But second base and center field are just fine. He's hitting for power this year. He's always walked a lot. His average is fine. I don't think he's going to be a big average guy in the big leagues, but yeah, he looks like a quality super utility guy, and that's more than we could say for him at the end of last year. Like I kind of thought this might be it for him this year in the organization, and he's kind of swapped in my mind with like Daniel Cabrera and Gage Workman, where I think that those guys need to come up with kind of a miracle over the last few months of the year to have a future in the organization. And Trey Cruz, I think, wouldn't be shocked at all if we see him in Toledo later in the year and maybe even in Detroit.
Yeah, and by the way, Cabrera, I mean, can we politely say this, Chris? I don't think we're going to be seeing him too much anymore of him.
He's on the development list, so unless they're working on something specific.
Yeah, we've basically decided. It's not basically decided. It seems like the development list is essentially you're not really good to,
So he's going to be selling State Farm insurance in Baton Rouge here next 2 years.
It's real estate. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, same thing with unfortunately Chance Kirby as well. Chance Kirby yesterday we saw him pitch and he immediately hit the developmental list today.
I thought he voluntarily retired. I think he retired.
Did he voluntarily retired? Is that what it was?
That's what.
Oh wow, I read that wrong then.
Wow.
Yeah, he got shelled last night, and I guess in rehab start. So.
Yeah, I mean it was really unfortunate because he was basically the pitching. I think he was voted the pitcher MVP. It's not like a real award, but the Erie held internal vote on who was the most important pitcher last year for them, and it was Chance Kirby. And he comes back this year, and he's back in Erie instead of in Toledo, and he's out of the bullpen. He's not pitching well. And he gets hurt. He's rehabbing a little bit. I think he rehabbed a little bit in Lakeland and then up in West Michigan, and he just didn't seem to have it. And it felt like, it wasn't the sort of thing where I would be shocked if he retires tomorrow. But like in retrospect, you look at it and you go, man, I assume that he was out there and he's like, I don't want to do this anymore.
Yeah, didn't we say that last night? That like this might be we actually. I would have swore on the way to the car, Chris. You go, it might have been one of the last times we'd see Chance Kirby pitch.
Yeah, we did. We did say that, but I didn't think he actually would retire, which is a bummer because I don't think he was a big league pitcher, but it's always sad to see these guys just kind of hang up the cleats. So
yeah, I just have one more thing to add. To Spencer Torkelson, we never really talked about him on the pod. He's hitting 091 in the month of June. Has 10 strikeouts, just 2 walks. Has the home run and then another single. So yeah, we really didn't. I don't know why we didn't really talk about him. Maybe there's not
because
much
there's really nothing. It's the same thing. It's just
well, he did have a good month of May. I mean, for his standards,
he had a good month of May on the margins anyway. I mean, compared to who, but compared to his past work, he had a good month of May. He was drawing some walks that looked good. I think he benefited from having Riley Green on base in front of him a lot. I think he's seeing one of the guys who's seeing guys in the windup all the time right now. He's not seeing the ball well, but hopefully it's just a slump. I mean, we're only a week into June. I mean, it's not like the end of the world. If he has a hot week, then it's all forgotten. But yeah, he looks like a rusty gate right now. There's no question.
Rusty gate.
Swinging like a rusty gate.
I've never heard that term before.
Swinging like a rusty gate.
No, he just remains utterly mystifying to me. Because everybody, we can all point out, like the StatCast sliders look great, other than his defense. But then he goes out there and it just doesn't happen. And to Johnson, I was just looking. So yeah, it was a 123 WRC plus in May, which would be totally acceptable. If he did that for a whole season, that would be great. But it was 57 in April, and it's 23 right now. Before today, when he went 0-4 with 3 strikeouts.
Yeah,
or worse. It still is just basically a full season's worth of plate appearances, 650 at bats, I think 650 plate appearances. But yeah, I mean, I don't. I've talked about this before, but I struggle to see. It just doesn't seem like he makes quick adjustments. But I do think you've point, and I'm generally not a big believer in like the idea of lineup protection or whatever. But I do think, and it may just be sort of a feel when Riley Green is there and he's on base, he's doing his thing that Torque wants to, it's just slightly more, zoned in and doing a little bit more damage. But, I even looked at so I don't know what his line is on the year now. It's like probably 220. But I looked at it like, okay, what if he actually were hitting to his expected stats, which were like 260 and expected slugging was like 430. He still would only have 5 home runs, according to Baseball Savant. So basically, he would be Alec Boehm instead of Spencer Torkelson. And that's like a 97 WRC plus. It's better than what he's been, but it's still not what the Tigers need from him. So
I am still troubled. And I wasn't really that troubled going into this year, but now, even through the good month of May, when he was hitting the ball pretty well, the lack of the home run power really is troubling to me. He's looking like a gap hitter. He's hitting hard ground balls and hard line drives, but he's just not elevating and putting it into the seats. And he should be. I mean, that's why they got him. That's the position he plays. That's where he's batting. And boy, I just struggle to see in my mind envisioning where that power is going to come from right now with the swing he has and how he's been producing. He looks like, and I called him that like 2 weeks ago, a low average John Olerud, and that's not going to cut it.
I don't know who that player is.
At this point, I really sort of Truckles and goes, I see, like I saw that upswing in May, and I'm like, okay, all right, cool. And then I feel like other players just have passed by. And you know what? Look, and Andrew and Jacob both had some really good points about let's start the Japanese pipeline. Anything, something.
That would be great. You do need those players to agree to come to your team.
Yes.
Yeah.
Also, Murakami is not eligible probably until 2026. He's only 23 right now. It depends. Sometimes it depends on what team you're with. It would be great if the Tigers just started doling out a bunch of money to Japanese players, or I'd love to see them pay for hitters everywhere. But I know there's certain realities that don't. We've seen the vast majority of Asian players end up on the coasts.
Yep.
You've had some, like there's a connection in Pittsburgh, and Yu Darvish went to the Rangers, but that was back when you just had to outbid everybody.
Yeah.
It's different now. So who knows? Maybe the Tigers can become that team, but I'm not holding my breath on that one.
Yeah. There's no established relationships they have going on right now outside of, the LSU connection's gone. We joke about that a podcast, and that joke was that Al Avila was friends with the manager from LSU. And so anytime the former LSU manager, and drawing a blank on his name at the moment, would suggest them drafting a player, Avila would pretty much do it. Dan Cabrera. So
Paul something, right? What is his name? Paul
Maneri.
Yeah, Paul Maneri. There you go.
So at that rate, I think thank you so much for listening. Thank you for everybody who's participated in our YouTube chat. By the way, I want to thank everybody. May was our best downloaded number in podcast history. So we've been doing this now Chris and I have been doing this for 7 years, and last month was our best month. So Thank you. Honestly, thank you. It means a lot, and we really, really appreciate it. And same thing with the YouTube numbers. Our statistician John over there has been telling us they've been doing pretty well, and everybody on Twitter. And by the way, it's so funny when John majority of the time runs our Twitter account, and I get some people who go, "How'd you guys treat that?" And it's like, it's called engagement. So certain things if you listen to us and you know the podcast well enough, sometimes it's not us. Sometimes it causes a conversation. That's how Twitter works.
Yes. And shout out to Cameron too, because he does a lot of good work, and I don't want him to feel like he's ever left.
Oh no, Cameron! Look, Cameron. I've told. I'll say this once. I'll say it again. Cameron is a low key assassin. He just does. He does really good work, and
he's Zach McKinstry.
Yeah, he will argue, and he'll take on Mark Gurash's and those people in the world on Twitter, and he doesn't care. Cameron, it's just like he's stone cold face on everything he talks about on camera. He's like. And I love Cameron, and he does such a great job on that account. So shout out to him. I asked him if he wanted to do draft coverage. We'll see. But speaking of the draft, join us July 9th. We're gonna have we're gonna be doing. So I want to explain this real quick before we get out of here. We're gonna be doing a pre-draft show starting at 6:30. So Uper and John will be on beforehand. They're gonna be recapping the season, all that stuff, and then the big draft show starting at 7:00. As we're going to have Trevor Huth. We're going to have Reese White. We're going to have maybe Brian Sikowski. Maybe. I'm going to see if we can get him on there. But we're going to have a great, great show lined up for the All-Star game. Or excuse me. It's going to be the All-Star break, technically. So, true. But MLB draft show, Sunday, July 9th, starting at 6:30. So it's going to be here. We're going to do this part of Mineral City Metrics, and then we're going to do the rest. We're talking on my report. I'm still figuring that out. But thank you, everybody. Thank you, Alex, Andrew, Old BK, Tyler, Andrew, And Chris, shout out to Chris there. Great insight on the outfield depth, by the way. Chris.
Outfield depth? What I was like, are you talking to me? So
Yeah.
I was,
Oh,
Yeah.
I decided to look up when the Futures game was because a couple years ago, I remember it was with the draft show and also the Futures game with Torque and Riley Green in it. We're like, well, we got it. How? And it was a bummer. So I'm like,
dude.
blood right.
Blood right.
Come on.
Blood right. Come on.
Oh.
You know what, man? I can't. Hold on. He deserves something better than that, man.
we got
Yes. Oh, no. Actually, wait. Hold on.
How about that?
How about
How about that?
All right, guys. On that note, Blood Right dropping, making it rain. Thank you, Blood Right. Thank you, everybody. We'll see you possibly on Sunday, maybe Monday, the second show, or actually join us Sunday night for the Tiger Minor League Report podcast starting at 8:30, 9 o'clock. Until then, have a great night, everybody.
Yeah. So Futures game is Saturday, draft Sunday.
Oh, maybe we'll do a live